Hello everybody out there, my name is Dustin Freund. Some of you know who I am, many of you don't, but I am the designer of a game called the Ghosts Betwixt. This is a dungeon crawler that came out last year and is still being fulfilled in some parts of Europe. I'm very proud of this game, but this is a great time to really sit back and reflect. I've been thinking a lot lately about if I could do it all over again, what are some things that I wish I would have known? Today I am starting a video series where I want to touch on a bunch of different topics when it comes to game design. It's not just making a prototype and designing your mechanics and finding artists. That is the fun part for the most part, but the shipping, the manufacturing, and the marketing. That's what today's video is all about. I'm going to start with marketing. So this video is all about why have you never heard of the Ghosts Betwixt? If you've noticed, when a new game comes out, it's a celebration. One big part of this is when everybody receives their games at the same time. That's obviously out of our control for the most part, but if there's any way to control that, I think it's really important. One reason is because my game, this is going to be one of the stories that I tell you about. This game shipped during a global pandemic and it screwed up everything. So it's actually coming in 3 different waves. So some people in Europe, in particular Germany, got their copies first. There was a shipping error, and the rest of the games that are supposed to go to Europe ended up coming to America. So that was a very hectic morning when I received that email. So then America was fulfilled, American backers, and then the rest of European backers are actually still waiting for this game. So it's been 3 different waves of fulfillment, and it hasn't generated that huge push on social media where everybody is getting their games at the same time, everybody's playing them at the same time, everybody's celebrating and sharing stories at the same time. So it's been this sporadic release, and I really think that for you first-time game designers, again, this is something that is going to be tough to make sure occurs, but I really think that it is important. This is beyond raising Kickstarter funds, but this is after your game is fulfilled, and if you're like me, you still have a lot of copies that you want to unload, so you can forward those funds into, in my situation, which I'll talk about in another video, paying for outstanding shipping costs and financing your next game. So for you first-time game designers, what I would make absolutely sure of is don't be afraid to over-communicate with your shipping and fulfillment partners. Make sure everybody is on the exact same page. This might sound obvious when it comes to your SKU numbers and delivery schedules, and if you have different versions of your game, like I have a deluxe edition, that kind of that confused somebody along the way. So just make absolutely sure that everybody involved in the shipping and fulfillment of your game are 100% in the understanding of all the different SKUs, delivery schedules, quantities, all that. You cannot communicate enough. I thought I did, but apparently it wasn't enough. So that is what caused this sporadic release schedule. The second reason you may not have heard of my game, The Ghosts Betwixt, is because of my pre-Kickstarter marketing campaign. On a meager budget, I think I did a decent job, and ultimately I did fulfill my goal, but I think there are lots of things I could have done more effectively to generate even more interest and buzz. So it's not just all about your budget, it's also how you use your money. So there's 3 things I can think of. I'm going to tell you some success stories, some things you can do for free, and I'm going to tell you some things to watch out for. So number 1 is I would start with, make sure, this is relatively easy. Make sure you are creating a Facebook group versus a Facebook page. A Facebook page should be probably more for your company. So my company is Innocent Traveler Games. So that's just a page that somebody can go and check out, the About Us section and just kind of see what's going on. But those people are not going to see any of your posts in that Facebook page. Those are business pages, and greedy Facebook is going to make you pay for every single post to make sure at least a fraction of your audience sees it. If you post something, I forget how many followers I have on mine, but I have a couple thousand. I mean, maybe a tenth, if that, will ever see a post I post on my Facebook page. So that page was at one point the Ghosts Betwixt Facebook page. I ended up changing that to Innocent Traveler Games Facebook page, and it's just kind of sitting there. I'm not doing anything with it. Instead, I made a Facebook group called the Ghosts Betwixt Community, and that is people, it's a more intimate audience, much lower. You're probably gonna get much less of an audience, but it's a higher quality over quantity of an audience. So there is more discussion. When you post something, you'll see way more people will see those posts. So it's just more of a community about your game. So for you first-time game designers, I would definitely make sure you make a Facebook group. You're gonna get more interaction out of that than you will a Facebook page. So that's number one. Number two, this is something that I did not do well at all. You're gonna wanna create a landing page on your website, or your website could be one page, it doesn't matter. But on there, you need a place for email registrations. So you want people to be engaged and want them to receive updates whenever you have something new to say, some new news, or if you're attending a convention, any of those things. It's very important to build up that email list. I'm not an expert on this side of marketing. Andrew Lowen out there, he is your pro. I'm sure many of you know Andrew, the designer of Deliverance. And he has a ton of great information. I wish I would have known more about that when I was preparing for a Kickstarter campaign. So building up that email list is going to be huge to make sure that the people that are really engaged in your game receive the messages that you want them to. The third thing I would say is make sure the campaigns that you've paid for, make absolutely sure that they are committed to you. I had a situation where just a couple days before my campaign, I had a major Facebook group back out. So we already had the deal set. I can't remember if I paid for it already or not, but that's besides the point. I was told just a few days before that, sorry, Dustin, your campaign has been canceled. And fill in the blank, in my mind, I'm sure they just got a better offer from a bigger designer than me, bigger publisher than me. So that was fine, but that really hurt because guess what? I reach out to all the other Facebook groups and communities, and they're all booked. They have a huge schedule already of campaigns that they're gonna fulfill. So I was really behind the eight ball when it came to paid marketing. So just watch out for that. I'm not sure there's anything you can do about that. I'm not sure there's anything you get in writing that they're committed, but that is something you have to make sure of. Throughout this process, this is gonna be a common theme. You have to watch out for yourself. You really, really do. So make sure you ask the right questions and just make sure they are as committed to you as you are them. Number 4 is conventions. So as a first-time designer, again, meager budget and approach, I don't think the pandemic quite hit yet, but I did go to some conventions. I needed to go to more for sure. I think looking back, I think, and I'll talk about this in a minute, I think I did a good job on social media when it came to interacting and promoting this game, but in person, I should have done more of that. I think that's really, really important. Many of you are like, well, yeah, duh. So just make sure you do need to go out of your way, make sure you attend as many conventions as possible. I did see some return on mine. I live in Kansas City, and so I attended some conventions in the Midwest, but I do think it's important to try to get to some of the bigger ones that I may have failed to do, and I do absolutely plan on doing in the future. But just make sure you do interact with as many people as possible in person. Call it handful, is more of the handful, but the people I did interact with face to face, I did see many of them end up backing the game or, following our Facebook group and just interacting. So it's just I still think there's a lot to be said for that face-to-face interaction. It's very valuable, and as much as social media interaction is, that face-to-face interaction is invaluable. So on that topic, on social media interaction, one thing I do think I did really well is just really be yourself, contribute to discussions when you can, talk about your interests, talk about your tips of game design or something that you learned. That all is obvious, but I think it's really, really important to have as close to face-to-face interactions as you possibly can, even if it is over Facebook. It's so important to build up those super backers, we'll call them, those people that are your advocates and are going to talk about your game instead of you always have to be the one talking about your game. You need to build interest in as many people as you can that really want to see your game succeed. So those people are important to, it's just important to interact with those folks, and you might have super long conversations with them over Messenger. I know I have. I've met so many cool people, still haven't met them face to face, most of them, but I would just say, make sure you have meaningful conversations as much as possible. That is free. Be yourself, and then you'll see them be advocates for you throughout your campaign. The last reason you've not heard of my game, The Ghosts Betwixt, is because I am generally a shy person. I'm one who does not like to step on anybody's toes, upset the apple cart, whatever cliche you want to use. And I am absolutely a person that doesn't like to be braggy or show off in any way. So I think as game designers, especially as first-time game designers that are trying to make a name for ourselves, I think we really got to put ourselves out there. And don't worry so much if you feel like you're talking about your game too much in too many discussions. There's a lot of give and take on social media. You have to participate in the discussions, and you should want to, for sure, just because at the end of the day, we love board games. But, if somebody says, hey, can somebody recommend a dungeon crawler out there with a great story? In the past, I think I might have been like, I don't know if I want to self-promote, but I do think it's really important that you do. At the end of the day, we're going to wear many different hats throughout this process, and one of them is to be a salesperson. So you have to remember that. If you do see an opportunity to promote, and if it makes sense, do it. If you have an opportunity at a convention to speak, do it. If you have an opportunity to join a podcast, do it. Don't be shy. Make sure you're able to identify an opportunity when it presents itself. I think I learned that in other areas of my life, but maybe did not apply it as much when it came to promoting the Ghosts Betwixt. So, if you are like me a little bit, and maybe that's why we are into board games, if you're watching this, is because maybe we are a little bit on the shy side. and like maybe smaller groups and things like that. But just make sure you put yourself out there, do whatever you can to get your game noticed. It is absolutely critical. Again, you have to watch out for yourself. You're gonna have to step out of your comfort zone to make sure your game gets funded, and even afterwards to make sure your game is successful after fulfillment. Because a lot of times, in my personal situation, the Kickstarter funds weren't enough to fund this game. So right now, I am in salesman mode and trying to sell some of my leftover games to pay for some of the outstanding shipping bills that I have. I want to put myself out there. I want to get to know some of you better, and I want you to get to know me better. I want you to get to know my game better. So if you made it this far, I really appreciate you listening. I hope some of this was interesting and helpful, and I promise that future videos will be just as valuable, if not more, when it comes to shipping, manufacturing, and other sides of the business that you're gonna have to make sure you look out for so you don't get hammered like I did. So I'm excited in some ways to revisit those events that have happened to me and share those stories and give you some really valuable advice that I think is gonna help you along the way. Thank you very much for watching. Talk to you soon.